Hi everyone, welcome to Here We Are, Brattleboro's community talk show. I'm Wendy O'Connell, and my guest today is Derrik Jordan. Derrik is a musician through and through. It runs in his veins and in his bones. He is a singer, songwriter, producer, and collaborator. He also plays a slew of instruments, many of which many of us have never heard of. Also, and very dear to our hearts, he hosts the award-winning BCTV show, The World Fusion Show, which is broadcast locally, nationally, and internationally. Welcome, Derrik.
Hey. Hi, Wendy.
Great to have you on.
So nice to be here with you
And
today.
here you are on sort of the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm getting interviewed today.
You're getting interviewed, and you're talking, and you're not playing an instrument. So you grew up in New Jersey, close to New York City.
Yeah.
So very northern New Jersey. And were you listening to music as a kid, or was it a little bit later that you got into it?
I used to listen to the radio a lot.
Right.
You know, back in the AM radio days,
Yes.
you know.
Transistor?
Yeah, well, that and in the car, you know, and whenever, sometimes at night, trying to go to sleep. So yeah, I was and we were near New York, and so eventually FM came around, and we started to listen to those great FM shows.
Yes, yeah, and there were a lot of them.
Yeah.
And so this was even as a little kid, I imagine,
Oh, yeah.
you know, listening to early rock and roll. So early influences that really got you?
Well, the Beatles, of course. I mean, I'm just like millions of other people, boys.
And girls.
Well, the girls too. Especially the girls. Let's not forget Beatlemania. But I was into the Beatles a little before they came to the U.S.
Yeah.
But I was there listening, watching on TV when they played the Ed Sullivan Show,
Yeah.
and was completely blown away by them at that time, and just thought, hey, that looks like fun. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's play music.
Yeah, it's so interesting to look back at that time, and if you look at that video, if you look at the Ed Sullivan Show, if you look at that show, it's like, what's the big deal, you know? But having lived through it, we know what the big deal was.
Well, I was only 9 years old.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty impressionable age.
Yes, it is. It is. And did you start playing guitar soon?
Right after, actually, a week after that, I was begging my mom for a guitar. I got a guitar and started taking lessons.
And you never stopped.
And kept on going.
Yeah. When you got to be more of a teenager, what kind of people were coming into your life musically?
Well, really, as a teenager, my influences, there were four main influences. And I was playing in bands and fronting bands by the time I was 13.
Wow.
So we played junior high school dances, and it was really funny because I was really shy, super shy back then. So I didn't dance, right? You know, like I couldn't ask girls to dance, but I was playing in the band, right? So that I worked around that a little bit.
Yeah, that balanced it out.
Yeah, right.
Super
anyway, Beatles first, Jimi Hendrix was my next great musical inspiration. Then James Taylor, interestingly enough. You know, very different, obviously, than Hendrix. And then after that, Stevie Wonder through the end of high school. So really different and iconic musical influences.
Very much so, yeah. And yes, very different, but also you were hitting them at just the right time.
Perfect.
Yeah. You go to college, you go to Bennington in Vermont, right?
In Vermont,
Yeah.
and fell in love with Vermont and studied composition and improvisation at Bennington. That's where I met my mentor, Milford, who's a master drummer. He also turned me on to world music and rhythm. I started playing drums, all percussion, and was very, very inspired by him. And what was really special about having someone like him is I could just stand next to him and just absorb what his feel was, his musicality, and just let it just soak into me.
Yeah. And do you think that that's more true with percussion than it would be with, like, if you're learning chord structures and things like that?
I don't think it's particularly true of any part of music or art or whatever. Just being in the presence of that person. It's as much about their way, their manner, the way they talk, the way they act, the way they relate to what they're doing, and just you steal everything. as much as possible.
Well, I think a part of it too probably is their generosity in allowing you to be there and to do the soaking, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And you actually followed him to New York?
I did. After college, I went down to continue my studies with him. I continued music, but also, interesting enough, martial arts.
Oh.
So we got into that a little bit. I was, I grew up in a white upper-class suburb in New Jersey. I'd never been in a fight in my life. I was now living on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, not in the nicest neighborhood. And, it was nice to spar with Milford. And he had grown up in the ghetto and grown up in gangs. So it was really interesting to just get some more experience and physical kind of, training.
Yeah, I think that it would really be edifying for you to have that kind of grounding.
Yeah.
Yeah. You came up to Vermont at some point, but you were commuting back and forth a bit.
Well, I only stayed after Bennington in New York for 3 years. But it was really interesting what happened because I was, trying to make it in music, right? So I met this wonderful singer, Angela Bofill, who had just gone to the Manhattan School of Music, just graduated. And I met her and we became friends. And I played a song of mine for hers, which after I played it, she said, "I'm putting this on my first record," right? I'm like, "Angie, you don't have a record deal. You don't have anything." She goes, "Nope, I'm gonna get signed. I'm putting on my record." 6 months later, she was signed.
Yeah.
And 2 months after that, she was in the studio recording my song.
That's so great.
So it was a great
and
story.
she was around. I remember her name, yeah.
And she's a very talented person. And then, so what happened, the song kind of caught on in New York. And so I would be like, I was living in the city, and I would hear my song on the radio.
So cool.
I thought, man, I made it. Like, I'm a year out of Bennington. I made it. Everything's cool. Well, not so cool. I didn't take advantage of that opportunity. And, it got its airplay and then went down.
Right.
And I didn't follow up by getting a publishing deal or trying to really use that connection to meet other songwriters, to write and to promote my career. And it just kind of dispersed. And then I said, I got tired of New York. Basically, in noise pollution was really intense. So I went back to Vermont, which I loved. And instead of going to Bennington, I went with my girlfriend at the time to Brattleboro.
Landing in Brattleboro, you pretty quickly set up some bands.
I did.
Yeah.
Our first band within a very short time that I started was a band called Cayenne.
I remember that.
Very popular band back in the heyday of a lot of local music. And very popular. But we were doing world music. We were doing funky, danceable world fusion music.
Let's stop right here just for 1 sec and give us a definition of world music.
Yeah.
Because it's very broad.
It wasn't called that then.
Right.
Back then, it was just like, African music or calypso or Caribbean or reggae or, they name it by the particular style that it was. And it's still really the proper way to refer, I think, to these things. But we now have this catch-all term, world music, for quite a while. And what it really means is everything that's not American or European or based on pop music, jazz, blues,
Yes.
coming out of this Western culture.
That's great. So during this time, you are also learning all kinds of instruments.
All along, really after Milford, before I even studied with Milford, I played guitar, piano, cello, and violin. So I was already playing all these instruments and playing in bands, and of course writing songs every day. That was my main thing, was as a songwriter. I started as a songwriter when I was 15, inspired by James Taylor, really, to write songs. And I was writing very much in his style, trying to, that kind of folky, thing that he does so beautifully.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing. But then once I started with Milford, I started picking up all these percussion things and hearing world music, instruments and instruments of different cultures. And I got into a very deep study of congas with him and percussion. So really, I trained with a master drummer.
Yeah,
and at a very early age, hopefully absorbed some of that, you
Yeah,
know,
well, obviously, yes, you did.
deep stuff, you know.
You also had a couple other bands. You had Spunk, and then it moved into Simba.
That's right. Simba's another band.
And Simba's still around.
Simba, believe it or not, still around. We just had an episode with them on the World Fusion show.
Oh, that's so great, yes.
I mean, like, Simba just turned 30 this year, so it's pretty amazing. We're
is
like
amazing.
up there in Grateful Dead territory. You know? Rolling Stones, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, in that area. Anyway, yeah.
It's still the same people pretty much playing together,
We
right?
had 4 of the founding members
Yeah.
are still part of Simba.
Yeah. Simba's great. It's just so dynamic and so
Yeah.
much fun, and
great
so much fun to watch and to dance to.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so along with this, you're also trying to make a living, right? And so you got into music producing.
That's right.
So you produced with various people, and also collaborating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I produce CDs for other people. I produce CDs for myself. I've produced a bunch of things. One of the more recent ones I'm really proud of is with Abiodun Oyewole, who is an original founding member of the Last Poets, which is considered to be by many the first rap group ever.
Oh, really?
And we became friends. I met him in Senegal through my good buddy Tony Vaca, and we started working together, performed a lot together, and then he asked me to produce 2 CDs of his songs, because it turns out not only is he a rapper, but he's a songwriter.
Oh.
But a lot of people don't know that about him. So we produced really a couple of beautiful CDs of his songwriting.
So you kind of have your own production company
Yeah.
in your house?
Yeah,
And,
World Soul Records.
When you're producing, you have to bring a lot of components together,
Right.
you know, and you have to, I'm sure it's a huge collaboration, but you're also looking for something as a producer, right? You're looking for sound. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, like most producers, I try to create a sound around the artist, right? So it's most important what they want, what they're looking for in their sound. Now, sometimes I'll bring in other people, like a great sax player like my good friend Eric Lawrence to play instruments that I don't play, but quite often I do all of the instruments myself because I play so many, you know, from drums, bass, guitar, keyboards, etc., all the percussion. So, but we might bring in extra singers or whatever, things that are unusual, right? So that's really what it's about. It's about creating that soundscape around the artist.
Yeah. So you're really creating an environment in a lot of different ways
Yeah.
for people to come together and play music. Going back a little bit to songwriting and composing, I know you've worked with a lot of different kinds of people, as you've mentioned, and also worked or played. I like the idea that musicians can talk about working or playing, and it's the same thing,
kind of
right?
the same thing.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. You worked with with Wyndham Hill Records with Will Ackerman
That's
as
right.
well. So lots like and VSO, right?
That's
So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, the Vermont Symphony Orchestra,
Yes.
they commissioned a piece from me a few years ago, and it was performed in 10 venues around Vermont, and it was wonderful to do that.
Yeah.
But again, what I'm doing with my work with classical musicians is I'm trying to bring in world music elements into that music. So I'm really just using the orchestra for the sounds and the huge sound palette that they represent to bring in these other components, African or Caribbean or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and so that's part of your songwriting piece, as well as production a little bit too,
That's
right?
right.
And I think one of the things that's outstanding, you know, I went and looked at your website, you know, and I knew that you had a website up, but I had no idea the range of things that you're doing, and it's amazing. And we'll have that information at the end of the show, Derrik's site. What struck me is this idea of bringing different genres together.
Yeah.
And, you know, the fusion is such a perfect word for it, even though, you know, it's been overused in the food industry.
Okay, yes.
But in music, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I guess in some ways you've talked about this, but bringing those different components together for you, that's a creative urge of yours. That comes from you.
It is, and I'm really interested in many different styles of music and kind of how they overlap maybe, because there are real similarities sometimes in rhythm, but they each have their own distinct essence, right? So one of the things that I like to do is listening literally deep listening to the different styles and then trying to come up with my own way of doing that style. So for instance, I do a lot of music licensing, producing for TV and film. And at my studio, I write music and produce music that's now out on over 100 TV shows all around the country and around the world. And so, but it's in many styles. Like, I mean, weird stuff that people wouldn't think that I would go after, like Chinese music or like Hawaiian music or like, I mean, I'm interested, what makes that different? So for instance, for my Chinese music, I was asked to write some music for Chinese stuff. So I rented a guzheng, which is a Chinese zither, and spent a week with it learning how to play it. Not easy. And I also bought an erhu. An erhu is a Chinese violin. Different, played in a different way, very different. And so I, again, tried to figure out how to play that. So I will just like get an instrument and mess with it till I can make a half decent sound, but also try to imitate the idiosyncratic style that is used in that music.
Yes, and how different musicians use that as voices, you know, or a way of expressing something or interpreting something.
Well, in a lot of ways, it really just imitates the language of the people who have that music.
Yeah, that's right. Can you say that about American music?
Of course.
Americana.
That's all kinds of stuff.
There's America has a lot of different kinds.
Well, look at the blues, look at jazz.
That's right.
We have a lot, yeah.
And you've done quite a bit of Americana.
I've done that too,
Yeah.
and that's part of what I've done. Again, there are some styles I don't write, like modern rock. I don't get it. I don't understand what makes those songs good. I'm a classic pop guy, you know. I grew up in the golden age of American pop music, you know, Beatles, Motown, you know, all that wonderful stuff. And so that's where I live in terms of my songwriting, in terms of my influences.
Yeah. You've mentioned all of these different things that you do. What's the most exciting or rewarding or compelling part of it for you?
Well, of course, I love to write music and share what I write with people and see how they respond. But I have to say, the World Fusion Show has been really, really exciting because I get to be a vehicle for all these amazing musicians and help promote them and brand world music as a thing, you know, world fusion as a thing. Because I think it's so interesting that so many musicians now are trying to bring together all these different styles in new ways. And that's very exciting to me. It's what I've been doing for many years, but I see this going on all over. And I just want to help to promote that more.
And that's what the World Fusion Show does. You've done how many episodes?
Our 53rd episode came out today.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot, and they're all different.
They're so different.
They're so different.
That's so interesting, right?
Yeah, it's so exciting, the difference in each one. And also, some of them you do by Skype, that you're able to do that.
We're now Skyping around the world. We've Skyped with Israel, with Spain, France, with Mexico, all over the place,
And you have traveled to various places as well over the years.
I have. I've been to Africa 3 times, 2 of them to Senegal with Tony Vaca, working with the Senegal America Project, which is a NGO that he works with, and wonderful group of people. And we've performed there a lot, done workshops, and I've collaborated with a lot of people there. We've done some great performances there. You know, so many cool things have happened. We did this big show in Senegal, in Dakar, with our good friends Bade Boubès, who have been on the World Fusion Show when they were visiting here. You have to go check out their episode. It's a great episode. Because they sing, they actually do World Fusion in reverse, and they sing I Want You Back by the Jackson 5. And it's just like, all right, cool. World Fusion, okay, you got me. You know, you're great.
So great.
So anyway, so we were performing there. And you know, here we are, Tony and I, in our 60s. 2 of us are going to go out on stage in front of this, like, you know, 1,000 people in this arena. And we're like these old white guys. And, you know, people are going like, what's gonna happen? You know, like are they gonna, these teenagers, are they gonna like this?
Yeah.
You know, whatever. So we go out. I say, Tony, you gotta like go out and introduce us in Wolof, because Tony speaks a little Wolof, right? He's like, no, I just want to play. I said, no, you got to do this, trust me. So he goes out and he introduces us in Wolof, and the place goes nuts.
Wow.
They go crazy. We could have done anything after that. We had them.
Because you connected immediately.
Totally connected to them,
Yeah.
and they were right there with
Yeah.
us.
You have won some awards over the years. And in a lot, again, in different genres.
Yeah.
Yep, chamber music, reggae, a few
That's
others.
right.
Yep.
That's right. And songwriting. Took second place in the USA Songwriting Competition
Oh, that's
a few years
impressive.
ago. Yep, for a kind of inspirational, gospel-y like kind of song. It was very nice, and we got. I also got, like chamber music. We're saying the Shakuhachi Chamber Music International Prize for a piece I wrote for a World Fusion String Quartet, and now with the World Fusion Show,
Tell us.
dear to our hearts, as
Yes.
you say, we did just receive the National Award for the Best Entertainment and Arts Series. And I'm thrilled because that happened in under 2 years from when we put the show out.
Yes, and that's for public access TV.
That's correct.
Across the country. And that's a huge award.
I think
It's
so.
Very
right?
cool.
That's what they tell me.
Yes, yeah. And here's our plug for public access TV.
Absolutely.
Yes, keep this going, folks.
Yes.
This is the kind of show that comes on public access TV. It is unusual because it is so unusual. It's just fabulous music. But to keep all that going, we need your support.
Yes.
So that information will be at the end of the show. And we would love to hear from you. Donations, big or small, we're happy.
And the World Fusion Show, I should mention,
Yes.
is also a podcast.
Yeah, oh,
and
good.
that's all over the place. SoundCloud, iTunes. We have in over 50 countries. And I just was doing the statistics a couple days ago. We've had over 12,000 hits on the podcast.
That's great.
Over the last couple of years. Our biggest show on YouTube was with my good friend Masamba Joe, who we have 8,000 views on YouTube for his show. And Masamba's a superstar in Africa, plays with Baba Mal for 40 years.
Wow.
And also was the featured instrumentalist on the Black Panther soundtrack. You can literally hear his talking drum from the first scene to the last scene.
That's incredible.
So Masamba, and I've played with him a lot in Senegal and here.
Yeah.
And he's a good buddy.
Oh, and also, at some point, you did receive the Year of the Composer Award. Literally, you received it from Governor Shumlin.
For the composers in Vermont,
Yes.
yes.
Right.
I was the one who he called up and asked to read the proclamation.
Yes, it was sort of recognizing all songwriters in the
Composers.
state. Composers,
yeah.
sorry,
Yes.
in the state.
And there's a lot of them. And this was the year that my piece was performed by the Vermont Symphony, and also I had another piece that I wrote for the Wyndham Orchestra in Brattleboro that was performed that year
That's
too.
right. So it made sense that you would receive it by hand from the governor.
Yeah.
To shift gears a little bit, you have always really been an environmentalist.
Yes.
Yeah, that's been part of what you've been doing. And I know that you were very active with the anti-nuke with Vermont Yankee.
That's right. That's
for
right.
Years.
I did that for years. I was a committed activist to try and shut down Vermont Yankee for 5 years, and worked like doing canvassing, writing letters to the editor, tours around the state, just trying to get the awareness out about Vermont Yankee. And thankfully, it's been shut down.
Yes.
And I'm also now been appointed to the NDCAP, Nuclear Decommissioning Citizens Advisory Panel. I've been serving on that for 4 years.
Oh, wow.
And so we report back to the state and the governor about issues around decommissioning.
Oh, that's great to know.
Yeah.
So that's continuing on.
Yes.
And you're still involved.
Yep.
That's a lot of your time, though, right?
Well, it's some time. It's someone has to check up on this stuff, right, to make sure, because our state legislators don't have time really to look into these issues.
But they need to hear from us.
So we do a report that we then send to them. Yeah.
That's great. And you've also stepped into 5G.
I have, and been working recently to try and stop 5G from coming to Vermont. That's 5th generation wireless technology, which will be, we feel is very dangerous because it's a much higher level of frequencies, and they have not been tested for safety with the public. And so we're very concerned about the imminent rollout of 5G around the state.
You have your own group down here,
Yes.
and you're collecting information, and then you're bringing it to the State House, the reps?
We worked up there. The group is called EMF Safety for Vermont. We have a wonderful group of people here in the Brattleboro area, but we're also really working to create satellite groups around the state. We took 5 trips up to Montpelier in the last couple months, talking to our legislators, Senate Finance Committee, Department of Public Service, to try and amend the rural broadband bill. We were able to get them to add a health report to study 5G. And hopefully that will produce results that will, be helpful in people understanding really the hard science that's out now, and more recently about the dangers, health and otherwise, that 5G presents.
That's a lot of work, Derek.
It's a lot,
It's a
but
lot of
it's
work.
part of the activism piece.
Yes, that's right.
And like Vermont Yankee, it's more invisible radiation.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a different kind.
And it's brand new, and we don't know that much about it yet.
We don't know much about it, and we're all about to be exposed to it.
Yeah.
If you live in a rural area on a back road, it's not coming to your house. However, if you live in Burlington, Brattleboro, Rutland, one of the major cities in Vermont, it's coming, and soon.
Yeah. Yes, so be informed.
Please.
Right? Be informed.
And you can go to BCTV. We have a series of videos up on BCTV under our own little channel, EMF Safety for Vermont, so people can go there and get informed.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Another reason to tune into BCTV,
One
right?
more.
Yeah, just one more. We've got a lot of reasons. Oh, and one last thing. You did spend some time at Greenwood School. You spent a lot of time teaching at Greenwood.
14 years.
Yeah.
I paid my dues.
You paid dues.
In the classroom, that's right. And I love teaching, I really do. I love kids. And Greenwood was just a great experience all around. And we had a very successful program there at Greenwood. I mean, it's interesting because I get these kids who had learning difficulties. It's a boarding school for boys with learning difficulties, and they would come and never have played an instrument, but liked music and thought, what the hell, let's try it. It's a safe space for that, right? So they would come having done nothing, and by the end of the year, some of them would be on stage performing. Their parents would see them. They would go, what the hell happened? I mean, he's playing guitar and singing his songs, it's like, so it was great. It was really rewarding to get kids to do that.
That's great. Derrik, you've really, you've pulled a lot of things together, and it's great to hear you, like talking about Greenwood. I'm thinking back to your mentor, Milford Graves, when you were in college, and the idea of people soaking things up from each other and just absorbing, who we are, we are and who we are to each other and what we can give each other. And certainly in the collaboration, that piece with music. I mean, that's what music is.
Well, I think in Greenwood, just to go back, it's like the kids would see that I could just play all these instruments.
Right.
Like, I just did it. I didn't make a fuss about it. And they go, hey, Derrik can do it.
Yes.
Why not? I can do it too,
That's right.
And some of them could. And some of them actually could. And that was just really empowering for them.
That is very cool. And it's, again, it sort of underlines the fact of start young, right?
Yeah. Before you know better.
Exactly. Thanks. This was fun.
It's great fun. Thank you, Wendy.
Yeah. Thanks for being on.
My pleasure.
Yes, and for the audience out there, we'll have the information for Derrik's site at the end of the show, and check it out. And check out the World Fusion Show on BCTV. It is really a remarkable array of musicians and music. It'll kind of blow your mind because it happens right here in this studio where we're showing this show. So tune in next week. We will be here. Thanks for joining us.